Hello, I'm Dave Meinhard. I'm at the Vattikuti Foundation headquarters in Michigan. I want to welcome you to the first Vattikuti Scholar webinar. Many of you are familiar with Dr. Mahendra Bhandari, our presenter and mentor for today. He is a prominent urologist and transplant surgeon, professor, researcher, and he is the chief executive officer of the Vattikuti Foundation. He has a great presentation prepared for you called Creating Your Career Roadmap. I now want to thank you again for being a part of this and welcome Dr. Mahendra Bhandari, who's going to join us from his home.
Good morning, Dave. Everybody. All of us draw our career maps, and most of the trends of drawing career maps is your own impressions, wherever you are at. You consult your parents, your teachers, your well-wishers. But this lecture is to prepare yourself to draw your own career map, because if you draw your own career map, that would be perhaps truly original to what you should be doing. Before I begin, I'll apprise you of the genesis of this webinar series. And this is you, because I've been fortunate to be touching so many lives in my career. And the questions are very common to every medical professional in his career. And the big question is, what should he do and how should he do? And that's the genesis, and that's why Vattikuti Foundation thought of taking an initiative and creating a series of webinars where we bring in the subjects which are the soft skill subjects to be taught to you by the best in the world who are high achievers, and hoping that you would be able to get inspired by those talks we have. The first response is unexpectedly good. We have about 101 people signed up for the webinars from all over the world. We'll give you the statistics of actual attendance after that, but people are mainly from India, the United States, United Kingdom, Bangladesh, and few other countries. Let's first be clear on what are the expectations of human being in general and medical professional in particular. Every time we crib about freedom, and we don't want to be camouflaged in growth by anybody else. So freedom is the first human need. Then growth. We are looking for a crescendo growth, not a plateaued growth. We are talking of well-being for ourselves, our families, and pleasure, of course. All of us, you will question me or counter-question me that we do have these, but they are pulsatile currently. They come and go. There is a brighter phase followed by a darker phase, and then expectation for the darker phase to disappear. But I'm talking of eternal, lasting, which is impossible. But you can really get close to what I'm trying to say. Ultimate measure of success across the world, in the economic world, the countries, the measure of political growth of a country is happiness. And it's no more material parameters to say success of a country, but it is the happiness of the people. And that's what would be the end point we would like to achieve in this webinar. There are first a few things which we should unlearn what we have been taught so far. First thing is, be yourself. God has created all of us as unique. There is no DNA copy of us available anywhere. All we do is we change over a period of time, and the best example I could find was my granddaughter, who was around 4, when she drew the drawing on your left of her family, mother, father, herself, and the boy was her true imagination, younger brother. That was her true imagination. And then when we go to school, what happens? Then your creativity is lost, because the language of creativity could be understood by the only person. This is what she has done, which is by no means a bad drawing, but this is what the teacher wanted her to do. And that's how, over a period of time, our education contributes in helping us to lose our creativity. And that's what is my endeavor. Another point is we would be converging towards the basic question, what should I do in career? I have seen your profiles, you are at different levels of your careers. Everybody would have a different question. It would be very difficult to generalize the answer specifically for you. Only thing I would suggest to you, in order to get to the right answer, stop thinking of what should I do, which is the usual question. Whenever you say, what should I do, you have narrowed your options of you're thinking of, should I take to surgery or medicine? If you are a surgeon, should I take to urology or orthopedic surgery? No, you should rephrase this question by telling, what could I do? You should say, hey, I am one of the best cream of the cream in the intelligentsia of the country, and I would, what could I do? I could do so many things. I could do administrative services. I could go in the foreign services. I could combine my experience with IT. So broaden your horizon, and that could simply be done by replacing should by could. And this is not my original. A lot of people have said that replace should by could. As I told you, I was very fortunate during my career spanning for over 4 decades. I touched a lot of intelligent people's lives. And today, many of them are at the places where I never dreamed for myself. They are high achievers. And I have been quite observing about their what was common thread in these? What was the personality trait which cuts across this group of high achievers? Number one, they were never fuzzy about their goal. Nothing in the earth would be able to shake them from what they want to achieve. They didn't decide the goal on market value. They didn't decide a goal on difficulty of achieving that goal. They didn't even decide a goal that what the rest of the world has failed in. Focus. They sharpened their focus so much that there was nothing seen. Most of us are Indians, and you would know the example of Arjun. So their focus was sharp, endurance. Nothing came in the way, no amount of physical discomfort. I've seen people walking with holes in their shoes, one pair of jeans for the whole year, no food to eat, no comfortable bed to sleep, no place to stay, no transport. Nothing comes in their way. Emotional commitment. Whatever they were doing, they developed a deep emotional commitment, and that we'll get to how could you develop that. It's not that you have to choose something with which you can identify yourself emotionally. Live life of their own. Take our own example. Right from morning to evening, we are living for others. We want to change our lives. We want to wear what others would like. We have an internal debate whether this tie would suit on this shirt or not. But they live their own life. They care a damn what the rest of the world thinks about themselves. Open and receptive. They don't let their brains harden as most of us do. And it's very true for professionals like us, where we develop a market value, we develop a professional excellence, technical excellence, we become closed. Nothing, there's no space with us, and we are closed. We don't entertain open ideas. Perhaps that is the time you should consider a siren that your career is going to plateau. Live in the present. We waste a lot of time, I'm sure you do, in thinking of the past thinking of what we have achieved in the past. And as William Osler said, the past is wastage of time. And that is true. It is eating on your present thought process. I was wondering, how should I encapsulate my delivery to combine all the messages which would register with you? And I decided to tell you a story of a girl, Mania, sitting in the lap of another girl in the center. And I'm sure as we progress with the story, you would be able to identify this person, because nobody can afford to miss this personality if you have anything to do with medical profession. Mania was born of a Polish family, but her childhood was very troubled and tormented childhood, not because she had any problem with the family, but she came at the point in time in history of Poland when Poland was annexed by Russia, and it was being ruled by the Russian Tsar. At that point in time, Mania was 14, and she was showing early signs of trait. First sign of trait of her success was that she was an ardent patriot of Poland, the country which did not have geographical existence, but she loved her country. But she had to face discrimination. She loved physics, chemistry, and mathematics, but she, as a Polish family child, she was not permitted to enter the laboratory. Still, in order to satisfy her passion, she found an access to a Polish origin beetroot chemist to do her early experiments. Soon she realized that the environment in Warsaw was not favorable for her to achieve her dreams, and she decided to move to Paris. Decided in the sense she had no resources. Family couldn't have supported her admission, but she made up her mind that if she has to realize her dream, she will have to move to one of the big Western European university. And she started collecting money. At the age of 17, she started working as a governess to many children. The moment she saved enough money to pay her tuition fee, and she was excellent in her career. Despite all repression, she topped the university school in her subject, so it was easy for her to get an admission. She had money to pay her tuition fee. She had money, extra money, for a dingy one-room apartment, and barely to pay for her cheapest of the food. In her biography, it is written that at nights it was a very inclement weather in Paris, and she would put every possible piece of clothes she possessed over her to protect herself from the cold. This is the time to disclose you. Who am I talking? You are right. We are talking about Madame Curie. In 1891, she moved over to Paris. She was at a point in time in the history which was a great period for the science. A German physicist by the name of Konrad Röntgen, you again know him, in 1895 described X-rays. An entire scientific world was made after him. They beelined him because it was exciting thing, something which could travel through body or amorphous masses. And this is the first ever radiograph which was produced accidentally of the wife of Röntgen with the wedding ring and the key tags in the hand. And this was a very exciting moment for the science. Everybody wanted to work on it. On top of it, it was much easier to produce these kind of rays because all you needed was electrical source and a vacuum tube. But at the same time, there was another gentleman, few months after, described another kind of energy rays, which he thought was coming from uranium as a source. At that time, he was being trashed out as something very weak rays. They couldn't travel the body, and no scientist was willing to buy his theory because he didn't have an adequate proof. But the Maria, or now Mary, had shown her another characteristic. She had two roads. She could have gone with the crowd, but she decided to travel the road less traveled. And that made all the difference. Michael Leboff said, major progress towards goals achieved and not activities. This is a very common lesson we all need to learn. Every time I have seen and talked to youngsters, I was talking to a young doctor working in emergency, and he said, oh my God, he has no time to eat food, or he had woken up throughout the night attending the patient. Mind you, this is all a process. Every time you do a labor-intensive work, take a step back and look. What did you move an inch towards your goal or not? Otherwise, it still remains a process. Life is not easy for any one of us, but what of that? We must have perseverance and above all, confidence in ourselves. We must believe that we are gifted for something, and that is the thing must be attained. This, if you try to read it deep and philosophically, Mary said that, look, you have been sent here with a purpose, and that is your responsibility to see through that purpose. You can't really sacrifice it for physical comfort. This is a beautiful story. Somebody wanted her to come for a dinner and present her a dress to go for the dinner. And there also she saw her lab, and she said, it would be very nice of you if you could give me a dress which I could use in my lab also. That kind of commitment and sacrifice for the physical comfort. You would agree with me, she was a person who was different. She left the crowds behind, even at the age of 70. Again, every time we brag on our past and we say what we have been able to achieve, and whether you do a PhD or super specialty degree, but more important is clearly which is possible is to know what remains to be done rather than what has been done. Another beautiful quote, I'm trying to give you these cut and paste from Marie Curie so that you can dive deep in this personality to extract essence out of that and to apply to your lives. Nothing is life to be feared, it is only to be understood. It's so true. Whatever you do, combat fear with knowledge. If you are afraid of something, try to go deep and understand more, read more about it, and you would be able to allay your fear. So to summarize unusual accomplishments of Marie Curie, first woman PhD in the world. There was so much of emancipation of women that no woman would be allowed to study science and things like that. First Nobel Prize in Physics in 1903 with her husband Pierre Curie and Becquerel. Becquerel was the one who gave the concept, but husband-wife Curies developed that concept and came up with the research on radium. This was, mind you, a Nobel Prize in Physics. And 1911, she went across the discipline. Here, I like to take a pause and make you to understand what we have been doing. We are busy partitioning ourselves or developing a myopic vision of being a specialist or a super specialist. But here is an example that science has no language, no specialization. There's no other example. There are lots of people with double graduate degrees, but there would be no example where people have got, or very few examples where people have got the Nobel Prizes kind of recognition in two specialties. Here, we are talking of, I was talking to analytical chemists, and he's not willing to talk anything about organic chemists. So give a broader horizon to what you do. Ultimately, your objective has to, what is going to make a difference in the quality of life of the human beings? Then a family of Nobel laureates, her daughter Irene and Frederick Joliot-Curie got a Nobel Prize. Daughter was working with her in her Curie Institute, but she didn't alive to see her getting a Nobel Prize, but she did supervise her work for that. In 1934, Marie Curie passed away with aplastic anemia, sacrificing her life for what she was destined to do. In 1965, even the younger daughter, which is being said that she was the only one who didn't get a Nobel Prize, but her family, her son-in-law got a Nobel Prize and received on the behalf of UNICEF. So when I say be different, I mean is different in thinking. Don't try to emulate somebody else because you would confuse yourself, your personality. Don't run after a hero. You are unique. You have all what you need. Only thing is keep your originality. Change your thinking. Change the way you do the things. You will do the same things as others do, but do it in a way which would be more productive and acceptable. Let's translate those characters of high achiever. She was persistent in what she did. She was focused. She had high endurance and had very tough living. She was inquisitive. She was a lifelong learner. And habit of working under constraints, a word for those who, most of us, those who work in institutes are always dissatisfied with the management, with the infrastructure, with the head of the department, and always attribute our slow progress or no progress to the constraints. Here is an example where constraints cannot withhold your concepts. Loving. This is last but not the least. She was a loving person. She had a tremendously lovable married life. She loved her family and sisters. So basically, we don't cease to be human beings and become arrogant pots. Look at the magnitude of achievements. Just I want you to sense it took 3 years for her to isolate 1/10 of gram of pure radium chloride, 8 years to isolate pure radium. She could never isolate polonium. It takes 130 days for half of the atoms in more stable form of polonium. Why it was essential for her point of time? Go back to the story of Röntgen and Becquerel. Nobody was willing to believe, and most of the scientific people ganged against her to say, give us the proof. There is no energy like that until she gave an atomic weight of the substances, radium and polonium. It wasn't acceptable. She published a paper, but before that, she and her husband had to burn tons and tons and millions of tons of pitch blende to isolate these elements. I think we have talked enough about Curie, and we will end up with this quote, not end my talk, but end up discussion on Curie, because she always said that don't discuss people, discuss ideas. So once you are different, you would be different. You would be conspicuous. Rest of the world has to take a note of you. See something what others don't see. That is in the business word for strategy. Every time we focus at something so obvious. Here, I can tell you, including me, first attention is directed towards the ripened mangoes. We have a conditioned reflex and a salivation, but there are very few like Marie Curie who would focus at the potential of unripe mangoes. Look beyond the obvious. Now, this is answer to your question. What should you do? Should you do what you love to do? Should you do what you are good at doing, or what your parents want you to do? I think it's an accepted norm that your dream job lies in the center or intersection of these three things, which should be something which you love to do, which also should include something which you are good at doing. Now, you will ask, how do I know you are good at it? People will tell you. You should take peer reviews and think. Ask your teachers what you are good at it. And last but not the least, in the management or the business word, people say it should pay you well. But here I would like to change it with your permission. If you combine your passion with what you love, with what you are good at it, the money has to follow, the recognition has to follow. Unfortunately, material gains and power has taken erroneously a center stage, but they are not lasting. They are short-lived pleasures, and even sometimes sadistic pleasures. Last but not the least, if you have an option, work with the people who are more intelligent with you, more talented with you, than your yes men, because that is the recipe for your success. Collaborate with the people who are who will really make you to feel low 10 times in a day that, look, you don't know this, and that would act as a trigger for you to work hard and learn and increase your. This is a natural phenomenon in life. The life cycle of a fruit is that ground fruits, which you see often lying under the apple-laden trees, some of them are good apples. They are recently fallen, and the bypassers would be satisfied. They wouldn't like to exert and pick up the apples, which would be good and eat. That's okay. But there would be other apples which would be low-hanging, and many of us would just be lazy enough to go beyond our reach and get the low-hanging apples. Some of them would be, bulk of the fruit would be the middle part of the tree. Very few of us would get access to these 4 apples which are on top of the tree. And that is the one where the sweetest of the fruits lie. Now, it is besides the deal that you fall down in the bargain to climb up and break your bones, but that is also acceptable if you have that objective. Once again, a particular answer to some of you who are listening to this webinar and ask me, they are dissatisfied with what they are doing. They have a great potential, but place and people is withholding them for achieving that potential. Now, my advice to them is stay back wherever you are. If you leave your place in disgustment and frustration, the next place will welcome you with frustration. Look, because if it's a bleak period, it will also pass away. While I was working with a great entrepreneur for a year, I was disgusted because I didn't know what I was doing. And then I talked to him, which was comforting. And he said to me that don't worry. If there is a narrow lane, you don't know where you are going, fast forward and walk quickly and bypass that lane. That, believe me, that lane is not going to last beyond your figure. Failure is another thing which depresses us, which detaches us from something doing, which makes us disgusted. We feel bad about it. But failure is a part of our process. Whether you have had a complication in a surgery or some failure, look back, it was because of your ignorance. Now I think we have question for you, and Dave will take over that question.
Hi, we have 2 polls. Here's the first poll. Please take a moment to read it and give us your best answer. Thank you. We're going to keep it open for a few more seconds. We're getting a pretty even mix of answers here for the first 2 categories and some for the last. So I'm going to get ready to close it, and we're going to close the poll. Here's the results of the poll. Dr. Bhandari, I'm going to let you comment on it.
Well, I think I would say that you have done unexpectedly well, and I congratulate those who have answered the second option particularly, because I'll tell you, there was a purpose in showing this slide. I'll tell you how it is. Let Dave have a second question, and then we will tell the purpose of these questions and what is the message out of them.
Okay, here's the second poll. Another kind of a trick question, so give it your best shot here. Thanks. Only half of you have voted. Let's get a few more people to make their guesses or votes. There we go. We're getting a few more answers. Over 80% now. Okay, we're getting ready to close the poll, and it's closed. Here's the results.
This question was relatively simple, and again, the middle option. Thank you for answering this question. Now, why did I ask you these questions, or why brain teasers? This is to prove a point that all of you would know is a subject in itself, but I want to introduce to this subject. There are two memories we work on, short memory and long memory. A short memory is one intuitive, based on our hunches, our experiences, and most of us are lazy enough to work on short memories. When we answer these questions, we use short memories, which may not be true. But the second, your long memory is the one which is analytical, where you apply your maths, where you apply your due diligence to confirm or not to confirm the findings of your short memory. So I think we need to use our long memory more, particularly for surgeons. We work on hunches, on anecdotal experiences, because that's where you commit the mistakes. Those who are analytical, again, it takes time. It is arduous to do maths, and both these questions, those who answered them correctly, I congratulate. They use their long memory, or which is an analytical memory, more than the short memory. We are coming to a close of the presentation. Few more slides. This is the point I would like to say. 20 years of experience as professor, or 10 PhDs, or 5,000 papers mean nothing. My advice to youngsters would be, take your own time. Produce one good paper in 5 years in highly indexed journals, and you are done. Don't bother about the quantity. There was nobody to advise us on quantity, and our peer review system was that every interview I appeared in India and abroad, first question used to be in my times, how many papers you have published? Very few of them would bother about the quality. So hence, I make a point that focus more on quality than quantity. In the future webinars, more would depend on the feedback we receive from you, but we intend to cover up these subjects, which is communication skills. Now, how do you speak? Public speaking. Communication is very important. Written speaking, kind of communication, verbal communication. How do you evolve a critical thinking? A very interesting subject to be done in the next webinar by Professor Debashish Chatterjee, who is the greatest thinker of the world. And he is talking about critical thinking and problem solving. We will also talk to you about art of listening. Non-verbal communication has two components. One component is how do you control your non-verbal communication or body language. You don't have to control. If you follow my first slide, which says be original, what you are, your body will automatically take control according to your honesty. As regards to talking to somebody, you need to learn skills of how do you observe him, how do you recognize his public face and the private face. So we will talk about the communication part of it, and there are some more interesting subjects to this. Lot of questions are asked to me. Some of you in this webinar could be the ones who are very keen to pursue their higher education and training in the United States. In short, we are going to cover this subject by those who have achieved this very difficult task in making their careers in the United States. They will be talking to you about regulatory issues, about your USMLEs, how do you prepare your skill sets for that, like research skill sets, publication research skill sets, but only way to get to this United States or any other good place of training, whether it is if it is good, it has to be research. Whether it is right or wrong is a matter of judgment. But there is no other way than to really get it. One word more I would like to tell you here. Tell you that every time don't feel constrained that you are at a place you cannot do more than what is happening in your department or what your people are doing it or what your had let you do. Today the world is very small. The communication and technology has taken over everything. Anybody who is feeling constrained should feel free and talk to contact Vattikuti Foundation. Stay tuned with us and we will connect you with the best of the people. We have a long distance learning program and we will make sure that if you have inquisitiveness to learn and develop your way in your professional careers, you are not constrained by your location. Thank you very much for your listening, and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
We don't have many questions right now yet, but we do have some comments, and so I'm going to send them to you as I can.
Yes. This question is a comment from one of my old colleagues, Rahul. Thank you very much for joining the webinar, and it's good to find you in this. Another question from, let me see what it is. What bear the fellowship options for Indian MCH in the United States? There are lots of fellowship options, and that's what we would be covering in our next webinars. The trouble is that there is a whole lot of regulatory and visa issues, and to beat those visa issues, you need to have qualify for the license. So you have to have your UMLEs, MLEs in order to do, because I see very little point in anybody coming and doing a non-clinical fellowship here. There are options, and I think I would request you, you can write to me separately and we can address your problem, but definitely listen to our set of webinars. We have included these subjects in the forthcoming webinars. Thank you. There is another question. In our profession, when we are restricted by so many guidelines and protocols, how do we think out of box? We really don't have the freedom as we are dealing with the lives. Well, freedom is a very relative term to address to Ramesh. I would say that freedom is that if I want to get locked in my room on my own will, it's my solitude. But if somebody forces me and locks me outside, it becomes a kind of a solitary confinement. So there are restrictions. You have to abide by the guidelines. You have to be ethical. Still, you have to produce. Because that's what I want to say. External world and infrastructure has a role to play. But major role is played by your passion, your drive to do the things. And then you will learn how to confine them within the scope of the framework, ethical framework or guidelines. Again, if you would like, because I'm constrained with the time, and but we would be very happy to answer you detailed questions. Thank you very much for this compliment. I wish that if I could excite you, if I could cajole you, if I could make you to challenge yourself to rise to the occasion and take action on that. Let it not be a webinar which would, that a nice webinar gone, but I would like you to take action in your lives and always partner with Vattikuti Foundation, because we are a non-commercial organization and our total objective is how could we help you to build your career. So please be in touch, and wishing you all the best. All I would say at the end, it was wonderful talking to you at long distance. We have had shortcomings in these webinars, but definitely take advantage of this situation, because Foundation has really launched a program which will help you to achieve your goals. We are going to put this webinar series as archival. It may take some technical time, but definitely it would be available for us. Last thing I would like to say, I have had so many last things, I apologize for that. Last thing I would like to say, that though we have thought of these subjects, but they are all subjective to changes and improvement. Ultimately, we don't want to be unilateral in giving didactics to you until it matches with your need. Please feel free, interact with us, write to us, and we would be able to tailor and include your common needs in the curriculum we have.
The next webinar in our series is going to be from Debashish Chatterjee, and his webinar is going to be called Creativity and Problem Solving. That's 2 weeks from today. I want to thank you so much for being a part of this webinar. It's been exciting preparing for it, and Dr. Bhandari's worked really hard. I know Dr. Chatterjee has also been in communication and is looking forward to being here in 2 weeks. One thing Dr. Bhandari asked me to mention is these webinars are for you, our Vattikuti Scholar members. And if you have some ideas, if you have some topics that you would like to see presented, please email us at the foundation, and we will try and work these in to what your desires are. You see the email address at the bottom of this slide. Please feel free to use that email address. Here's Dr. Chatterjee's information again for next week. This webinar is the first in a series, and we have 6 more planned. Every 2 weeks, we will have a new topic. Once again, thank you for being a part of the Vattikuti Scholar webcast, and I'm going to say good afternoon, good evening, or good morning, then, depending where you are. Thank you so much for attending. Thanks, Dr. Bhandari.